killing of your father. Do you think that in your lifetime you will ever see those who killed him being punished?
Well, at present, all the men involved in my father's murder case, all the men who are accused in the court case, are in government. One of the police officers is the chief of police for the Sindh province, where I live. They have held federal positions. They have received national medals under this government. One of the police officers received a national medal for his services to the Pakistani people. So no, I don't. And it's not just me or my family. I don't think there is any justice in Pakistan at present.
Now, Fatima, on a more personal note, how do you deal with the intense public scrutiny that follows you, good and bad, flattering and critical everywhere? You're watched so closely that when you hang out with George Clooney, the world media sort of starts speculating on whether there's a romance brewing there. You're still a very young and beautiful woman. How do you cope with that scrutiny?
I don't. The nice thing about believing in freedom is that people are free to do what they like, but I don't really have to pay attention to it.
Well, brave of you to say that. Now, there are parallels often drawn between the Bhutto family and the Gandhi family, the bloodied history, the leaders dying a violent death, the sort of glamour associated with both families. Do you see that parallel between the two families in the subcontinent?
Well, more than that, I think we've got so many parallels between India and Pakistan that it seems almost strange to pinpoint it. The feeling that you get as a Pakistani when you come to India is how similar our stories are, how shared our experiences are, how we have dealt with so much of the same fault lines, so much of the same tragedies. And I think really that's key here, isn't it? That we should be able to learn more about each other and to have more access to each other, because there's not really that much that separates us.
Right, culturally, of course, there isn't. I remember meeting you in Larkana in Sindh right after Benazir Bhutto was assassinated. I was just wondering if over time, to watch your aunt die like that, in that violent way, altered or took away some of the resentment you grew up feeling towards her.
Well, I never had any resentment towards my aunt. As somebody who lived under her government, I was witness to the corruption that took place under it, to the law and order situation that resulted in, extrajudicial killings in the thousands. In the 3 years of her rule, you had some 3,000 people killed in the city of Karachi, and my father was one of those. My feelings about her were always those, that she should have been better. There should have been something more just, more ethical, more upright from her government, and that there wasn't. But as an individual, no, there was no hatred. And in fact, seeing her die in the way that her family had been, over decades dying, and to see that violence repeated was horrible. It continues to be horrible.
It was in fact chilling, wasn't it? Now, you once wrote about how Pakistan, your country, is a state that is set in self-destruction. In India, there is concern that Pakistan is a country that could just implode. How real do you think that possibility is?
Well, when I say they're intent on self-destruction, I mean the government. I don't mean the people. I don't mean the country of Pakistan. What we saw, again, recently in the middle of all this furor, what we're not seeing really is that there is a flood that has come again, another flood after last year's very devastating flood that is affecting some 8 million people in Pakistan. Nobody is talking about those people who are dying of hunger, the children who are dying of waterborne diseases, because we are talking about a government that is just trying to protect itself, that is calling meetings to protect its own seat in power, but it has nothing to do with the Pakistani people, and that's incredibly dangerous. That's always been dangerous for Pakistan, and that continues to be very worrying for those of us who live there.
Fatima, given the sort of very turbulent, turmoil-filled personal history that you and your family, your extended family have grown up with, how real is fear for you? Do you live with it every day? Do you fear for your life? Does that ever alter your decision to stay on in Pakistan?
Well, I live in Karachi, and I think what you find is that everyone is afraid. There is fear everywhere. People have no access to justice. People have no recourse against the arm of the law, which is brutal and arbitrary. People have no protection against a state that is violent and that wants its people to be comfortable with violence. So we've seen a lot of killings in Karachi, and 40 deaths a day doesn't seem to bother anybody. That's frightening, and I think all of us feel that in Pakistan.
Let me ask you a last question. We've seen, of course, that a lot of good poetry and prose comes out of conflicts and tragedies and conflict zones. But that aside, as a Pakistani, what gives you hope today? Is there anything that gives you hope that your country can actually pull out of this mess?
Well, of course, one is always hopeful because there is a humongous difference between the Pakistani people and the Pakistani government. They are like night and day. And when you look at the Pakistani people, you find that they are not very different from you. They want the same things. They want to have freedom of movement, freedom of expression. They want access to the people who make the decisions for them. They want liberty and they want justice. And so long as that exists, I think we always have reason to be hopeful. What will change? Well, for one, I think corruption is something we have to battle very strongly. And we have, of course, a humongous power that props up governments in our country because we are a strategic country. So corruption, violence, lack of service to the people doesn't seem to matter to those who keep the Pakistani government in business. And I think when that changes and you have a people's government, when you have really a government that answers to its own people, you will see a different country.
Well, Pakistan stands on the precipice in many ways. Fatima Bhutto, a pleasure to have you on the Buck Stops here and being our newsmaker today.
Yes, Barka, me too.